Hey people, what's going on? I am the Broken Puppet and welcome back to my drawing tutorials. Today we're going to be doing a really cool tattoo design of like a skull, snake and roses. A bit of a mashup like neo-trad and both old school. So it's going to be really fun. So I hope you guys enjoy it. So I'm going to do this on the iPad Pro in Procreate. Just create a few different layers. Going to start at the top, I'm going to use sketching, technical pencil. I'm going to start off with dark red. You can use normal paper, anything you guys want, you know, just copy what I do on whatever medium you kind of have at hand. So I'm going to start off with sketching a circle. You know, if you sort of draw a type, you know, it makes a perfect circle. But we're going to start off with basically a rough sort of perfect kind of circlish. Once we have that done, I'm going to bring this curve off the side like this. And I'm going to bring this rectangle coming across like so. Roughly about this kind of height, and it's going to come a bit outside the box. The idea is it's going to be kind of like where the eyes go. So it's getting a rough idea of just how it kind of works with that. Once you've got that done, we're going to work in this nice semicircle underneath. Just like so. If you draw a line roughly about halfway through the box, we're going to draw this sort of triangle shape just here. A little bit just off to the side of the halfway point. That's going to be roughly where the nose is going to go. I'm just going to create this curve line coming down here. I'm going to curve, kind of mimicking this kind of shape here. So we get to about here, and kind of curve up into it. Create another little line just underneath, just breaking it up. So you can see you've got like, you know, basically the bottom part of the jaw is just here. The upper teeth, it's going to be the nose, the eye's going to go in here, and the top of the skull is going to go in this area. You know, it's just an easy way of kind of formatting and kind of structuring it to get everything where it goes. And don't worry, it will come to focus and start to make sense as we sort of draw it. I'm going to add a circle just here on this side. A little circle just here on this side. Getting a bit of an oval. Kind of filling up that sort of space there. And another oval here. A bit slanted, so it's kind of like this sort of angle with the eyes. Now, don't worry, it's not perfect. You know, this isn't. You know, this is just about getting sort of like, you know, the composition right. So don't worry about, you know, getting everything sort of perfect as we start. Still, once we've got that, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to start adding little details, just kind of build it up. I'm going to start with the nose because the nose is always a good sort of, you know, center point to start with. You know, once you've got the nose, you can kind of like shape everything else around it. So I'm going to curve this up like so. Just make a bit more kind of a curve to it. Bit of a bend. We're going to dip in, like I said, it's a bit kind of like curving inwards on this part. Let's go a little bit of detail, sort of curving in and kind of flicking in towards the nose. Another one here, so you kind of have that sort of two kind of nostril kind of bits just here. Don't worry too much about mainline details, we're just kind of building up the sort of general shape to get everything exactly how we want it. I'm going to bring this curve kind of up here, not quite the same height as the eyes, just a fraction bit lower. I'm going to make this a bit kind of bumpy, a few little lines come back inwards. And this is going to curve around till it touches this eye. And from this we can kind of build up this side. So we're going to curve this up around here, curve this up, around like so. And don't make it perfectly straight, now give it a bit of kind of character, make it a bit kind of like bent and crooked. You know, don't worry about getting it sort of perfectly in line sort of straight away. You know, just kind of sketch everything until it kind of feels about right. You know, I think it's very important to get used to the idea of like sort of sketching when it comes to the actual building up of designs. You know, because if you don't give yourself the freedom to sketch, you're not going to be able to get the composition kind of how you want it, and you're going to miss out on a lot of little details you can come up with that you won't really notice without the whole sketching side of things. So yeah, just kind of forget about the imperfection from the get-go. So I've done very similar on this side now, just curving around there so it fills in that kind of gap. From here, I'm going to bring this curve just around here. Just going to get this curve, just going to connect up to there. You know, it's a bump, you know, consider like, think of it like the eyebrow kind of area. You know, you kind of want these areas to kind of bump out a little bit, you know, above where the eyebrows would be. I'm going to curve off around here, so it's going to bump down, kind of around that sort of circle we drew. It's going to bump up a little bit and connect up to this semicircle we've done here. Once you have this done, bring a line down roughly from that centre part of the nose, and kind of work out where you want your main two teeth to be. So I'm going to put them here. And I'm not going to worry about detail in a minute, I'm just going to sketch in rough oval shapes just to roughly kind of plot them in. And I'm going to put them on here, just curving along. And I'm going to follow that curve shape. Very important, if they don't follow the curve shape, it won't look right on this kind of image. So just keep plotting these in, around and around, like so. Once you get to about here, you want to bring a line up here, coming in quite close to the nose, quite close to the eye, and then I'm going to dip it down and kind of connect to the outside part of the skull there. It just really kind of helps define sort of cheekbone and that sort of shape of the face. We're going to have a bit similar on this side, so I'm going to bring this little curve just kind of up. I'm going to dip this down, I'm going to bend it up, make it a bit crooked again, bumping outwards. I'm going to bring this up, I'm going to do the part around the eye first, and we're going to come back down here and do that line again. So this is going to follow the eye shape, kind of curving around it, and then once we get to about here, it's going to kind of curve up and kind of go wherever it wants to go. Again from here, we're going to bring this line out now, coming up quite close to the eye, and coming in quite close to the face as well. So this side you want it to come in a little bit more further than what this side is, because of the angle of the face, because it's not facing dead on, it's not perfectly symmetric. And that's going to curve around there, so again it's just going to kind of build up the shape of the skull. Some little flick lines just above the teeth, just kind of give a sense of where they're going. And again, bring that little line down from those two teeth, just there. And that'll give you an idea of where you want to put the bottom teeth. So again, I'm just going to sketch these roughly in. You know, you can count exact numbers of teeth if you want. I never really tend to count exact numbers. I just sort of do them until they kind of feel about right. So, you know, it's a design. It's our design. It hasn't got to be exactly, you know, what a real skull is. You know, especially because it's a neo-trad and old school. You know, maybe if I was doing it like, you know, 100% realistic, then obviously I'll get everything perfectly kind of right by the anatomy, but in this sort of situation, you don't really need to. So you can see for the bottom part of the skull here, the bottom part of the jaw, I followed that line. I've just made a bit more kind of crooked. I brought in this little line here, little line just there, kind of curve around. Just add a bit more detail, so made this line a bit kind of sort of jumpy and bumpy. Kind of around here. When I got here, I sort of bumped in towards that tooth, and then just flicked that just here, where the outside part will connect up. So you see, it's kind of building up the sort of skull shape now. You've got this roughly in here. Just sketch this part in here, so it's not like 100% dead perfect circle. But you've got like a nice kind of building up a rough sort of shape of a skull now, you know, which is what we want. And once we've got this, we can start to work out what we're going to do with this skull now. You know, because I said we're going to have sort of a rose and a snake in here. So I'm going to move this around here, so we kind of got this roughly where we want it to be. I'm going to turn the transparency down, so I'm going to click on here. I'm going to turn the opacity down to roughly about, say, 45%. So it's nice and faint, but you can kind of still roughly see where it is. Now this is going to help me now, because I want to sort of plot where I want the snake to go. So I'm thinking I want, you know, part of the snake's going to come out the mouth. So I've done this on a new layer. So it's on a separate layer. I think I want his tail to kind of come out the mouth. So I'm going to bring in a line. I'm going to curve it. Give it a nice kind of curve. Now you want to sort of like this back and forwards kind of motion, really going with it. It's going to curve up here. I think I'm going to come out one of the eyes. So I'm going to maybe come out this eye. And it's going to curve up. It's going to loop around the head, I think. And then maybe I'm going to come around the top. And his face can kind of be off here maybe. Which I like that. And once I've got that done, I'll probably have a rose. I think one about here. And one about here. So I like to have different kind of heights for them. I don't want them to be exact same. Now the rough positioning for that I really quite like. So I'm going to go in there and just start making it a bit more the right sort of shape and size. So right on that line, I'm now going to bring the lines around the outside. I'm not worrying too much about the snake detail, I'm just trying to get the body width, the right kind of width. So I'm going to bring in my line, come down, and as I get further towards the end of the tail, it's going to go really thin. And then coming back up, just going to keep sketching it in, and it's going to keep getting slightly thicker and thicker the higher we get. So you've got a nice bit of body there, and then this is going to curve around here. Be careful you don't cut out too much good detail. So I've made sure I avoid this eye because I want to sort of show this eye off. You know, it's always good to have in certain locations, but you want to make sure, you know, that the main parts of detail are still clearly on show. You know, the last thing you want to do is kind of sort of take away from that. So I'm quite liking that sort of, you know, width for it. I'm thinking I might put another little hint of body just maybe around the outside. Maybe around here or something. And possibly just there to show that it's really kind of wrapped up. Yeah, I quite like that. So I'm going to have another bit of body just there. Another bit maybe just around the back part there. I'm going to just curve across here. I'm going to have it kind of curve up this way because I kind of want this face to kind of like have this sense of direction really. So I'm going to have this kind of like sort of semicircle kind of shape. Don't worry about detail in a minute, I'm just kind of, in my head I'm sort of picturing how I kind of want the body to go. So I like that. I think for the kind of width, I really kind of like how that's got, you know, positioned out now. Now you can kind of have it going wherever you want. You can go in the nose, out the other eye, you know, pretty much out of any hole you want really. but yeah, just keep it however you sort of want. You know, once you've got that done, you can turn that on back up if you want. But I might keep it down just a touch while I put in the detail now. So what I might do is I might turn a transparency down of that snake at the same time as well. And now I'm going to come in, I'm sort of going to detail that snake a little bit more. So it's very important, you've got the snake, you know, you've got to think, you know, you've got the face, you've got the underbelly, and you want to get the kind of positioning right so everything kind of fits exactly how you kind of want it to. So I'm going to start here, I'm going to start with the underbelly. So I'm going to get this sort of motion like this. I'm building up these curves, keeping them roughly about even until I get about here because I want the sort of body sort of shape to change a bit. So it's going to slightly turn, and as the body shifts around. I generally prefer to keep the belly on the under part. So under here, if I've done it here, I'd like it to sort of be generally under when I can. The only exception sometimes might be say like on this part here. I might have the body in say that part, but generally for most of the snake, I like to try and keep it under the body, under the belly. So you get a little end of it just there as it curves around there. Again, you might get a little bit of a hand just here as it curves around that way. And again, just coming down here. And as we get here, I'm going to have it sort of shift position to the other side. So I'm going around the other way. So I quite like that for the underbelly. I think it's got a nice bit of flow to it. So I'm going to bring a line now, and this line is going to be like the spine line, so it's going to be like, you know, down the centre of the back. So you see here, where this body kind of twists, you know, from the belly to the belly, I'm going to bring this line, this is going to twist, going to the other side of the body now. Like so. You know, like here, you know, I'm going to have this sort of spine going here. You're not going to see too much of the belly at this kind of angle. You know, so I might just have like maybe a hint of a couple of lines just there, possibly. And then down here, you're not going to see much of the spine because the spine's going to be on the other end of him. I like that. And depending on how the body rotation is on that back bit, it might have a little line just there. Just so you can kind of see something in that position. I'm going to come up to his face now, and I'm going to start working on the face. So I'm going to bring this sort of curved triangle sort of shape. It's going to be his kind of nose. I'm going to bring this out. I'm going to curve this around like this. I'm going to bring this down to that same kind of point just there. So the idea is going to have nose, and it's going to be the back kind of gum. And I'm going to have the eye is going to fit in that gap. So where that sort of dips down, that's where my eye is going to be. Similar sort of thing here. I'm going to bring this curve just like this for this part. And when you've got this face, I'm going to bump this up a touch. I'm going to have this curve just coming off of here. Another curve going there. Around the eye, I'm going to bring this line curving around the eye, connecting up to that top part just there. Same underneath it. So it kind of gives that sort of snake eye. In these upper bits, I'm going to have this kind of pattern work, so I'm going to bring in this sort of curve. I'm going to have this curve going the whole way through this body. The secondary lines underneath it. I really quite like this. Yeah, it's got a nice kind of flow to it. Now here's where it gets a bit tricky sometimes, is when you're sort of going further down the body. So you want to kind of mirror it on the other side. Now this is why a lot of time you go old school when they keep the body, they don't have rotation. Because it just kind of saves this, you know, especially if you're going for a design like this, it just makes it a bit easier sometimes. But easy isn't always the best option. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you can be a bit of a fool to take the hard road, but sometimes the hard road is worth the payoff. So I'm just keeping this shape kind of going through. So it's kind of got this sort of like V shape, kind of curving down each time, kind of overlapping from the one before it. And same on the bottom here. So we're going to have this kind of curve. You know, whatever pattern you do on the back, I recommend sort of carrying throughout the whole snake. You know, I don't think it really works when you kind of mismatch different sort of designs into a snake's body, really. You know, they're very much a sort of pattern the whole way through it. Going to come back up to the face now. And when we've got these gum bits, I'm going to create these loops. Just like this. Going back. So the further we go back, the bigger they get. And I'm going to have a similar coming here. I'm going to go shift it around the other way this time, come to the bottom. You don't have to, but I quite like to sort of shift it around. 2 little lines for the nostrils. And I'm going to create these fangs. I'm going to create these curved shapes like this. Leaving just a little gap. And I'm going to create little lines. So it's got a bit of a gum. Another tooth just here. And in between this gap, I'm going to create these little lines curving like this. And that can just disappear. Similar bottom teeth, I'm going to create 2 kind of curves. And I'm going to create, it's roughly, just gently going to sort of sketch it in for the minute, because I'm going to have the tongue going over it. But a little line here, just to kind of sort of show the back part of the mouth. Now the tongue, there's quite a few different ways of doing it. I like to keep mine fairly simple, so I'm going to curve out the mouth. And there's this sort of curvy line just coming off. And as you get to the end, you're going to kind of want to split into 2 bits. Just like that. So I really like that. I think that's got a really nice kind of sort of shape to the snake now. I'm really happy with the snake there, so I think I'm going to kind of sort of leave the snake roughly like that. So what I'm going to do is going to go into the skull. And I'm just going to raise any bits that's kind of like where the snake is now. That way when I make the same transparency, it's just easier to see. And it kind of commits me to the design as well. So yeah, so you can see it's all kind of building up really quite nicely now. So now we've got it done, I'm just going to merge those 2 down. Turn both the transparency down a touch. Oh, one sec. I forgot I've done that in 3 layers. Just merge that down so they're all down. Transparency down. Again, I'm just going to create another layer now. I'm just going to add the roses on the outside. So I'm just going to create another. I've done quite a few tutorials on roses, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. Just going to create a few kind of overlaps just here. So you're going to create these sort of layers. I don't like that top one actually. Just change my mind on that. So I've got one just there. One coming here. One coming here. You know, roses is all about kind of sort of building up the structure and layers. Depending on the kind of style you want, but they all generally kind of follow the same kind of format. So I'm building up these sort of layers across, and I'm kind of building body underneath. So kind of creating like the rose bud just here. Then once you've got the buds, we want to build it out with the build it out with the outside petals and stuff. So I'm going to create this little curved line just here. So you've got these 2 petals just on the side of it, and then you've got the under ones. So I'm just going to sketch roughly one there, one there. And then once you've got the outside petals, you can then add the outside leaves. Just bring a line out, go around, like so. Cut these back. You know, I kind of, I've been making these ones quite a lot. I'm quite a fan of these sort of like kind of kite-shaped ones. They're almost like diamond sort of leaves. I mean, you can do the curved ones where they're just like kind of curves and stuff. You know, it's really up to you, it's personal preference. You know, I go through different kind of ones all the time. You know, there is like a million ways of doing them. Just going to duplicate this one because I want it to be a bit sort of symmetry on the other side, which I think would be quite nice for this. And then I'm going to bring this down a touch in size. This is a good thing with doing separate layers, you can then adjust to get everything exactly how you want it. I might decrease this size just a touch. Bring that down a bit, just like so. Just going to group these together. Just select them and then click group. And you can adjust the angle of the design now, so get that like that. Yeah, I'm liking that. I think that'd do, unless I want to go a bit more rotation. Actually, yeah, just a tiny bit more. I like that. Yeah, I'm going to go for that. So now I'm going to create another layer on top now. I'm going to go black. I'm going to go calligraphy. You can go inking if you want. I just really like this pen, the monoline. It just gives a nice even line width the whole way through. I'll be using this, and for a fair bit of it as well, I'm going to be using the technical pen. I switch between them depending on which part I'm drawing. But yeah, they've both got their uses. You know, one's a nice even one, and the other one's going to have like a nice little flick to it. Obviously the flick I'm going to use a lot inside the skull. In this one I'm going to use a lot inside the snake. So I'm pretty much going to go over everything we've just done now. When you're doing it, just trying to make sure that all your lines kind of connect up. It makes it much easier when you want to shade. If you're familiar with my videos, you understand why. So when we use the selection tool, it makes it a lot easier to do when there's no gaps. If there's gaps, it just makes it irritating. I'm going to go quite bold with it. You know, the snake's going to be much more kind of like the old school sort of style, and the skull's probably going to be a bit more neo-trad. You know, I usually stick to one style, but I'm looking at something that's going to be nice. You know, experimentation is always important. You know, you never know what's going to work. So just give everything a go. I'm not going to do all the lines the same kind of thickness. Just most of them on the body. You'll find generally the more you sort of do this sort of stuff, you get this kind of hand motion, it'll become like second nature. It's like, yeah, the reason I can go so fast is where I've done it so many times. It's like muscle memory, I just know how to get that sort of shape easy in my hand. You know, you'll get that in time as well. But for now, don't worry about speed. You know, I know I say every video, but speed's really not important. Let's get these little gummy bits in here. Those teeth. Let's get that a little bit closer. Actually, I'm not too keen on that second tooth when it's there. That's better. Prefer that. So if I'm kind of rotating this quite a lot, it's just kind of how I draw. I kind of forget that I'm doing it half the time. Now, I think it's very important to kind of look at your design from every kind of angle. You know, because sometimes it might look great from one angle, and then when you switch for another way, you realise a lot of your composition might be off. Very, very handy tip when doing like portraits and stuff as well, and that's flipping it around and having a look. You know, you'll be surprised what's out of position when you look at it from an outside point of view. Let's get that spine line up the center. Let's get these back lines. Yeah, like we've got these back lines here, inside part of the back lines. I'm going to do like in a thinner line. I'm going to try and match them up either side if I can. Sometimes it'd be pretty much impossible to kind of line up certain bits, you know, when you'll be certain angles. If it's impossible, then don't worry about it, just kind of make it look the best you can do. You know, but if you're trying to make perfection out of everything, you're kind of going to get a little bit stuck. You're not going to be able to achieve that, really. You know, so yeah, just do what you can, the best you can. Let's get these blank patterns repeating. You'll find when doing a lot of stuff, especially with old school, you know, it's the pattern work's so important. You know, I think with old school, I know it's probably the most important thing. It's one of the key defining things about it. You know, although it's got this sort of design base, the patterns are just so important. It's kind of what makes it the way it looks. And you'll notice a lot of time you see the same kind of patterns repeated over and over. I think I'm going to go to the inking for a little bit. I'm going to go to technical pen. It's just got like a nice flick to it. Just shrink it down a touch. There we go. It's going to get that curve now, and that's going to connect up to that eye, remember? I'm going to get a little flick line just here coming down towards the end part of the nose. Just make a few little kind of random sort of little lines and sort of parts in here, just add extra detail. I'll do a little mimic line just around the edge part of this nose, just around here. And a couple of thin lines, just coming down off that nose. Yeah, like that. Same thing here, I'm going to create these inside eye details. I'm going to create this bit here, it's going to be a bit of a kind of crack, so it's going to be quite dark in those areas. A few little kind of layer bumps. You know, there is sort of specific sort of ways you can do stuff inside the eye to look real, but I prefer to kind of create my own sort of pattern work for the inside the eye parts. But again, that's just personal preference. You know, if you sort of want to get the exact sort of details inside the eyes, you can always sort of Google it, go on Pinterest and up. There's loads of skull references. You better see exactly how the cracks usually, or the usual kind of formation of the cracks in the face. It's very important to remember certain bits, you know, you kind of want thicker, and some bits you don't want thicker. And sometimes, like, if you see a little extra detail you can add, you know, it's always cool to add it. Now, never be afraid to add stuff. You know, if you mess up the design, you know, mess up the design, you can not do it next time, but always experiment. You know, that little thing you don't realise, you know, that you sort of try might be something amazing, and you might be using that every single time you do a design after that. You never know. But you never know if you don't add it. So, yeah, highly recommend always experimenting. Especially if you've got the iPad. You know, if you've got the iPad, there's no reason not to do, you know, because two-finger tap, you go backwards. You know, so if you do, you don't like it, it's gone in a heartbeat. Cool, so that's building up nicely. I'm going to create this little effect just above the teeth here, I think. So I'm just mimicking the outside part of these teeth. Just like so. A couple of those little line details I told you about just inside the teeth. You know, you can kind of branch off of these and kind of connect up to different areas if you want. Or just flick them in there. But that's getting a nice kind of sort of structure to it now, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to create a few little cracks just here at the back of the head. Just create this little line just here where that brow kind of would be. A few little random sort of skull details, like little sort of dots and cracks just here and there. Little zigzags just coming up the centre part of the skull. Let's get this outside part of this jaw done. Back of the snake. These little lines just coming down here. I'm going to go back to the calligraphy so it kind of matches up nicely, so they're nice and even. Just makes it a bit more kind of consistent. Because I've done the upper part of the snake, so I might as well do the bottom part of the snake the same kind of way. I mean, to most people probably wouldn't really notice it, but when you're the artist, you always tend to notice these things, and if you feel like it needs it, just do it, because otherwise it just bug in the long run. Just move this around. Let's get this back part in here. Let's make sure that part side of jaw. Got a bit of snake body we said was going to go here. Just put a back pattern so it's got the same kind of pattern still. I know I didn't sketch it on, but it still needs to go there. Right, back to the inking pen now. All the pens you see me use as well are completely unedited. I just use them the exact same way they come in Procreate. Just so that when you guys sort of draw, you can do it the exact same way I do. They're not been edited. You know, I mean, you can edit them if you want to. One handy little tool you can use if you want is one called Streamline. If you go on the pen, up here, you click on it, and it'll take you through to the details. And yeah, you got one called Streamline. And if you turn it up, it just makes your lines a bit easier to pull straighter sometimes. I mean, personally, I find it a little bit annoying sometimes because you get like a bit of a sense of drag on the end. But if you're not very confident pulling straight lines, then it's a very, very handy thing to have. And I'd highly recommend it. I know I'm wrecking my own rule with that pattern work. I should be doing this with the calligraphy. I'll probably end up going back after the video and redoing it with the calligraphy because it'll probably bug me, but let's just see how it turns out. So we've got the baseline work there for the skull and the snake now. So I'm going to go back to the snake. The snake. Go calligraphy. I'm going to turn this right down now so I've got a much thinner line. Yeah, like that. And just add little details just here. Just a few little areas. A snake eye in there. Repeat this all the way through this. I find it very handy as well, like when you kind of rotate, because I can do this motion, and then if I rotate this one in the exact same position, I can just keep that same hand motion going. And it makes it really easy to kind of get through the whole thing. Get that nice and even, similar line. But yeah, just keep it going, just keep building it up. You know, it might seem a bit repetitive, you know, but it goes quicker than you realise. You know, once you get the hang of it, you know, once you get the kind of the motion going, you start to fly through it. You know, it's anything. The more you do it, the quicker you're going to get. You know, the more natural it's going to feel. You know, if it's your first time doing any kind of pattern, it's obviously going to take you a bit longer. So don't worry. You know, the comfortability will just come in time. Unless you're doing it dead perfect straight away, then kudos. Just keep this going. Doing that so you can see. So it's all shaping up nicely now. So we're getting there. So now we just pretty much got to do the tongue, which I'm going to do with the inking. So I'm going to get a nice kind of flick on the edge. I'm not ignoring people's comments, it's just my Wi-Fi just will not turn off when I'm doing this for some reason. I put my pad into like airplane mode, but it just still notifies me for some reason. I know, it's probably a sign that I need to get a new pad. No, but I had the idea, I've had this pad for so long, I love this pad. I know it's like the older model, you know, it's I think this is like the first gen of the iPad Pros. I think they're on like the 5th or 6th now, I think. So yeah, I mean it's still got the same kind of sort of functionality, but it's probably a bit outdated compared to the newer models. But I'm a bit of a sucker when it comes to getting familiar with something, you know. I get emotionally attached to things when I shouldn't. And stuff like this, I just, yeah. If you're the same way, like if you've got like a favourite paintbrush or something, like, you know, and despite the fact that it's probably fallen to bits, you literally just cannot let the thing go. Or am I just the only one who gets sentimental about stuff like that? Let me know. But if you start naming your equipment, then it starts getting weird. No. Don't go telling me you got a paintbrush called Barry, you know, it's just a bit odd. Now, great attach, but yeah, you don't name it, that's going too far. Cool. Probably could have done that a bit separately, I could have just copy and pasted it. But no worries. It don't take too long to draw these roses. You know, especially the way I do them, because I'm just familiar with the style. That's it, I don't expect you to go the same speed I do. You know, like I said, this is just the fact that I am very, very familiar with doing these. You know, I mean, I'm tattooed, so I pretty much draw every single day, so I've been doing that for pretty much my whole life, so like, I'm not going to say how many years. I'd be curious to know how old you guys think I am, though. Actually, don't answer that, because you're probably going to think I'm older than I am, that's going to get me depressed. Or you're going to make me think I'm younger than I am, that's going to get me depressed. Realising that I'm old. But I will continue to talk to myself for no reason. There we go. So yeah, just got on there. I've literally just turned off the sketching layer now, so all the sketching stuff is gone, and all that's left is the glorious line work, which I think is really cool. Built up really nicely. Just gonna have a few little line details just to fix up the rows. And now we've got that, we can go into sort of shading and colour and stuff. So I'm going to click up in here, and you've probably seen this quite a few times. Click on the line work layer and click reference. I'm going to click a layer underneath. I'm going to use spray paint tool because I like using this for my shading. You can use whichever one you want though. Now when you've got reference, it means no matter what layer you're on, it's going to select inside that layer. So when you go selection, automatic now, anywhere I click, it's going to select within the area, even though it's not drawing on that layer. Click and drag and make sure your selection threshold is about 93 to like 98, you know, and then you won't get this annoying white line edge. I get messages about it all the time, so, and that's a common thing you guys have, so just don't do it. So I'm going to select inside the eyes to begin with. Got my paintbrush tool. I'm just going to start blacking out around the outside bits, like so. I'm going to come into this part of the eye. Select a few little bits, then the whole thing. I like to select, you know, certain areas sometimes. It just kind of gives a bit of a different kind of feel when you have different layers of shade. See, like that, you kind of got this nice sort of shadow on the inside now, which looks pretty cool. If there's an area like this where you kind of have your gap open, use the freehand selection tool and then you just draw inside the area that you want to shade in, and then just draw within that area. Yeah, it just makes it easier. It's one advantage you have like with paper, and that's, I think on paper it's easier to avoid certain areas when you're doing it with a pen. But obviously on the brushes on here you can't really control in the same kind of way. So it's one downfall of digital art, I think. But unfortunately I don't think that's going to be something you can really correct. So I'm going to select these sort of cheekbone areas now. Oops. Let's increase that size again. And I want to get this nice kind of sort of black fade just on that kind of under part. Just in here. Just like so. You can go as light or as dark, you know. I'm going quite dark with this. Just mainly so that it kind of match up more with the old school snake, because that's going to have a lot of dark black. A little bit around the bottom, just here like this kind of little bumpy part at the bottom part of the skull. Just got that going up there. And just keep building it up bit by bit. Pretty much anywhere it kind of sits underneath, like here. This sits underneath, so I'm going to have that area black. And you could even have the whole thing black if you wanted to. Which I quite like. I might actually black that bit out. I like that. Sometimes certain areas do look really nice when they're sort of blacked out. You know, don't be afraid to give that a go. I'm going to put a little bit of black just here underneath where that snake part is. I'm going to go freehand. Basically want to select this little bit just above the eye. Just want to get this hint of shadow across there. And then I'm going to go back to automatic and just select the bit above it. Just to give it a sense of the kind of curvature. Another bit just here on the side, the inside part of the nose. Just a bit of shadow from the bottom. Not quite coming over the top area though. Top part of the skull, I'm going to get a little bit of black just across the top of the outside edge. Just there. Nothing too crazy. A little bit of the underbelly. And then you've got this area just here. Again, because like this part of the skull, you'd kind of be like on the inside. So, a bit of black just on that area. Black out that bit behind that, don't need that there. This inside part of the mouth. Gonna have black mainly from the top. I'm gonna have a little bit of colour kind of highlighting underneath that, so I don't want to black out the whole thing. I mean, you can do if you want like that, but I'm gonna leave a little bit just underneath. So now we've got that done, I'm gonna go onto the snake. Shrink this down a touch. I'm gonna go black here. I'm gonna do this kind of like a bit underneath that pattern work. I basically want black to kind of go the whole way through this, but just not quite touching the belly. So pretty much getting as close as we can really without touching the belly. So again, just keep this going around like this. Just not touching that belly. As it gets a bit smaller, you can eventually touch it if you want. And a little bit in an area like there, just where it sits underneath the mouth, you can. Because when it gets to this sort of stage, it's kind of like too small to really make the difference. Now we've got that through. I'm going to select every other one to begin with. It just makes it easier when shading. And I basically want a little bit of black just on the top part. That's literally just a tiny bit just on the top part. The reason I select, you know, every other one is that way I don't sort of go over the one previously to it. Select that there. So just do that there. Do that there. Just do this one there. There. Cool, so as you can see it's all building up nicely now, so I'm just going to carry on doing this. Just keep getting that edge. I'm going to have to plug this in. Bear with me for 2 seconds, people. Right, let's just stop the battery dying. Fingers crossed it will. So just keep getting that effect. Building up throughout it. These little ones, I mean you can do the extra sort of little line pattern if you want in there, but when it gets small I won't really bother. If you're just tattooing this, because of the size of it, you pretty much wouldn't be able to do that, so at that stage I just kind of simplify it just to one line. So now I'm just going to select the outside leaves on these roses. And a little bit just on the side of the tongue. Oops, selected too much. And now we've got it done, pretty much just a few little areas and then that's it for the black, and then we go to colour. So I'm going to turn the transparency down, reduce the size. So just kind of put this kind of around the edges, just kind of sort of tell the shape a little bit more so. A little bit above the teeth, just here. Just kind of give it a bit more of a kind of bony kind of texture, really. And that should do it for black and grey. So now I'm going to go underneath, create another layer. I'm just going to go to colour. I'm going to put everything I know that I want certain colours in there. So the roses are going to be red, and I think I'm going to have this bit here yellow, I know that. So I'm going to start off with the yellow because I 100% know where I want my yellow. I want yellow in this area, this area, this area. Pretty much all these little areas just on the back of the spine. It's always the best thing, just go for the colours that you know you guaranteed want a certain colour. Oh, forgot to do the black bit there. I shall do that before I forget. So yeah, I'm just going to go straight up for the colour in those areas that I kind of know that I want. Again, just in here. Just like so. Yeah, and I think I'm going to have the underbelly red. So just keep clicking all of these bits. Just going to go red. I'm going to make a little bit of faded red, I think. I'm going to go super strong with the red on this one. Thinking a bit red behind the eyes. Red in the gums. And red on the tongue. So now I've got it done, I'm just going to quickly go back to the black just for 2 split seconds just to add those little bits we need to. And these 2 little bits just to, and that little one just there, because I missed quite a bit on that one. No worries, it's done now. I'm going to go for this top part of the snake now, this kind of pattern right down the back. Just keep selecting. If the whole screen goes blue, it basically just means you accidentally selected the screen. So I'm going to go for this blue, I think. Yeah, I like this. It's got a nice feel to that. Let's keep that going down. And not too much left on the snake now, so I'm going to select inside mouth bit just there. Going to go for a bit of a kind of purpley tone for this, just like that. You know, you can do other sort of little effects. I'll do probably a few more sort of little kind of colour fades on the snake, maybe towards the end, but we'll see. I like how that looks. It's going to give his eye this, I really like this mint green kind of colour. And now I've got it done, I'm going to go into the skull. And what I'm going to do in certain areas that I kind of considered underneath or like certain dark shadow areas, I'm going to go with this purple. Very kind of faint. Like a lilac kind of sort of tone. I just really like how this kind of fits, especially when you kind of get the next colour on top, which I'll do in a minute. There's purple in there. It's got this little bit just inside that little kind of gap just there. I'm going to go for this kind of bony sort of colour. I want kind of like around here. So that's like a kind of faded kind of brown tone. And we're pretty much going to go over everywhere we kind of sort of shaded really. Now I'm not looking for super strong sort of tones and colours. Not on the skull in a way. You can do, there's nothing wrong with that, you know. But that's not kind of what I'm aiming for with this one, I don't think. But see, I might change my mind. I doubt it, but you never know. Just like this area just up here. Select the bottom jaw. Yeah, like that. And then I'm going to select the teeth. Try to work out what colour I'm going to do these. Possibly yellow, but we'll see. Yeah, I quite like them yellow. I'm going to do yellow, but I'm also going to edit. Don't worry, it's not going to be like just a whole bling in yellow. Kind of slight gradient to them. Bit more kind of on the neo-trad sort of side of things. So I'm going to go a bit of kind of sort of brown tone. Go much smaller. I'm just kind of going to go in between the teeth so you get a bit of shadow on both sides. Just like so. And then I'll do the same thing but down the centre with like a highlight tool. So I'm going to go yellow, bring it up so it's almost kind of white, so it's just got like a little hint of yellow to it. And just a little strip just down the centre of each tooth. There we go, I like that. So now I've got it done, we can go on to the roses. I'm going to select most of it, just not the kind of pointy bits. Yeah. There we go. And I'm going to go red to begin with. Actually, no, to light, I'm going to go with this really light sort of pink tone to begin with. I'm going to do it in like layers. So start with, I'm going to start this way and then go slightly darker as we go. I'll start with, I'm going to sort of come here, where you kind of get to these tips, I'm going to create these kind of curves around these tips a little bit. Kind of around these centre areas. A lot of this I'm going to sort of edit and sort of go, I'm just putting in a rough sort of shade sort of tones where I kind of want them. Leaving little highlights just down the centre, kind of around the edges sometimes. Sorry about that, typical, my battery died like right at the very end. Got a little bit charged in, so I should get enough to get through this now. So back to where we was, just picking that. Right, so back to the roses. So I'm going to select him now. Now that we've got that sort of pink in there, then a bit of that darker pink in this area. So I'm just going to basically just plot in all the areas that I want a bit darker, so kind of around the edges. Since what I've done the other one, and come here towards the end and kind of refine that. I want a sort of this dark sort of shadow behind the skull. It's going to give us a really nice kind of effect. Going to come in with a red now. So as we're just kind of going over everything we just sort of just done. We're just basically just getting it darker and darker each time. Just to get to kind of the level we want it to be. Do that on this side as well. Then once you're done this, I hit with like a nice sort of like dark deep red. The last bit. Gonna select a few areas just so I kind of get that nice hard edge. I don't want to go black with it, like I said. Just want it to be a bit lighter than the rest. I think it's nice to have like one area to kind of contrast the rest of the image that way. So if you've got an image that's got a fair bit of dark in there, it's nice to have something light in there somewhere to kind of contrast it. I like that for little flowers, I think. Just need to add red in this bit because I've missed out of that area. Now the outside leaves just here. I'm going to do a little more signature kind of way. I'm going to do this like a nice kind of yellow and then a nice brown underneath. You know, if you're going to work on Instagram, you probably recognise this because I do it quite a lot. You know, I just really like the kind of autumny kind of vibe with the leaves rather than greens. You know, I do greens, but this is the way I kind of love to do mine. So you've got the golden top on the yellow and there's that bit of brown just underneath. I'm just going to stick these last little bits just here. I've got a little bit just under there to do as well afterwards. I missed a tiny bit. I'm going to use the same blue that I used inside the snake, just to kind of get a bit of symmetry to the design. I'm just going to hit the outside edges. I don't want to hit too much on the inside. I want it to stay quite light. So just like that, I think. A little gap bit just there that we missed. Just do that with the reds. And lastly, I want to get a little bit of shadow just in the background. Just to kind of set the design in place. I feel like a little bit of shadow sometimes just really does the trick. And nothing crazy. And it's not going to be black, I'm going to hit it with a bit of a grey. Fairly large. Just gently going over it. You know, not over all of it, just pretty much any time there's something on the outside, just kind of hit the outside edge. Really. It's pretty much all you really need to do. Any little gap bits you kind of miss, you can kind of go over. Sometimes certain bits just won't get selected because they're just a bit too small. And there we have it, people. That is how you draw a skull, a snake, and some roses. You know, I'll put this design up on my thingy as well, on my social media, like Instagram, YouTube. This is on YouTube. Sorry, on my Instagram, Facebook and stuff, so you can always check it out there if you want the exact reference as well. But for now, people, I'm the Broken Puppet, and I'll see you next time. Peace.